Hey guys, before we start the podcast, I just wanted to let you all know that my husband, Bert Kreischer, is starting his new Permission to Party World Tour in Rockford, Illinois on September 18th with all new material. He's been off the road for almost a year and he's ready to get back out there, and I'm ready for him to get back out there. Tons of dates and cities. Go to bertbertbert.com to find a show near you.
They looked at us and said, well, the hospital should have drawn it. Didn't they draw it? And we went to the hospital and said, didn't you draw it? And they said, oh, not in Florida. The standard in Florida is that if a trauma patient comes in, we don't draw it because the insurance company will deny the claim.
What?
Stunned. Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. Where are you in the world?
I am on the coast of New Hampshire, on the seacoast, just an hour north of Boston.
Oh, it's beautiful up there. I used to live in New York and I took a trip to New Hampshire to be a date for someone to a wedding. And it was really beautiful. I think we went to maybe a lighthouse while we were there.
Very possible.
Is that possible?
It's like 15 miles of shoreline, so it's not a lot of it, but it's very possible.
Somewhere up there. Maybe the lighthouse wasn't in New Hampshire, but it was definitely on that trip. It's so beautiful. But you're not from New Hampshire, are you? You're from Canada.
Yeah, Toronto, Ontario.
I don't know that I've ever been to Ontario, but Canada's beautiful. Such a beautiful place. Well, obviously I read your book. I loved your book.
Thank you.
I have some questions for you, but I actually don't want to talk too much about the details of what you wrote in the book because I want people to read it.
Oh,
yeah. I think that's when you write something like this, it should be consumed, right? Someone should read it. So let's talk about some of the things, but I don't want you to think I'm leaving things out. Well, I am leaving things out, but it's by design so that people will.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot there, right? Like it's a big story.
It's a big story. Yeah. It's a story about extreme, amazing love, about sacrifice, about a connection that's undeniable and otherworldly. It's about faith, about family, about perseverance, about failed systems, about what else? About a journey, your personal journey that had little to do with Baylie specifically was also pretty impressive and amazing. Finding love, losing love, finding love. I mean, it's pretty full, this memoir.
I know.
So I think I know what inspired you to write it, but for people watching, what inspired you besides Baylie herself? What inspired you in you? Because people can tell their story in lots of ways. What made you want to write a book about Baylie?
Well, I knew I had to write this book. It was a knowing like I've never had. I knew that this was my path and I had to share the story. The book was already prompted for me before the tragedy. I just didn't know that the book was going to be about Baylie and her tragedy. But the book was already a seed planted, if you will. It was just affirmed for me when this happened. And the series of events that happened surrounding Baylie's tragedy and surrounding, the college and the whole incident with Baylie and the roofing and the sex trafficking. And it was like, people need to know this. So there was no doubt for me that it had to be written. It had to be a story. And, I was compelled to share more than just the piece about Baylie's horrific experience, because it really was a lifelong journey. And what happened to Baylie for me was a part of that journey. I felt like if there's a way to look at life through a different lens and believe perhaps that we're here for a reason and maybe this was her life contract, I wanted that to be expressed in the book in a way that people could see the journey of her life, the things she had been through, what brought her to that moment, and those breadcrumbs that I talk about that were sort of left, that reaffirmed for me that, my goodness, there is a lot here that's beyond coincidence.
100%. I agree with you. I think the story, maybe we should tell the listeners a little bit about what happened for Baylie so that they have some context of what we're talking about. Would you do that? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I would love it if you would.
Of course. So Baylie was a sophomore at the University of Miami. She was headed into her neuroscience program. I dropped her off at the University of Miami a week prior to this tragedy happening. And I left on the Thursday night. We went on a sailboat trip on this Friday. And I talked to Baylie. I talked to her on the phone. I talked to her on the Saturday about how things were going, how she was settling in. We'd set up her dorm room and gotten all those things done. And she told me she was going to go out that night. It was a 21st birthday party. She was going to go out with her sorority sisters, knowing that on Monday she would really have to, have her head down and nose to the grind because it was a hard program she was in. So, did all the mom things. Please be careful. Let me know when you're home safe, all those kind of things. And then I lost service on the sailboat. We were 3 hours offshore. I didn't have a signal. The following morning, I got a call from the police asking if I was Baylie's mom and that Baylie was alive, but there had been a terrible tragedy. We needed to come to Miami right now. And there was no question. It was right now. And I said, why do we need to come? What kind of an accident? I can't tell you. You need to come right now. And eventually my husband was talking to them and they said, no, you don't have time to pack a bag. You don't have time to stop anywhere. You don't have time to go home. You need to get on a plane right now, as fast as you can, get here. So the urgency was there, but we just didn't know why. And then when we got there, we learned that Baylie had been hit by a car at 3 a.m. She was downtown Miami alone, walking at night, which then the next question was, why? Why is she alone at 3 a.m? She had walked 3 miles in the pouring rain. And then later we discovered that there was videotape surveillance of Baylie and that the police suspected that she had been given a roofie. She was in an Uber with 2 strange men that no one knew. And she had called for help to suggest that something was very wrong. She couldn't use her phone. She couldn't find her way. She needed people to come get her, was the message. Please come get me. I can't use my phone. I can't use my Uber app. I don't know how. And the girls didn't know how to help her. And that's part of my mission with the foundation, is to create a safety net for these kids and educate them. And so when someone calls for help, help is there. And never occurred to anybody to call 911 or to try to get her home safely. It was just, you need to walk. We'll follow you. We'll track you on Friend Finder. You need to walk. And they tracked her as she walked into traffic and was hit because she was drugged. And the police believed that by the way she was walking. The witnesses described her as being zombie-like, not like a drunk person, but like nothing, he said, nothing I've ever seen before, like an out-of-body experience. She just didn't respond to anything, not horns, swerving cars, flashing lights, nothing. She just walked like a zombie. And then at that point, that's when we learned that Baylie was over 18 and I didn't have the forms in place to make decisions on her behalf, which is also part of our foundation, trying to get those forms to be a standard part of the college admission process so that they are just presented to the families and you can decline if you want to, but they're right there with all the other paperwork. You can easily fill it out. It goes straight to the attorneys at the college and it's done. You don't have to go looking for it or figure it out or say, wait a minute, what do I need? Who do I have to call? Let's just make it easy.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a lot to say about what you've said. Your story was so moving on so many levels. I have the same age children that Baylie was when this happened. I have my youngest daughter's about to turn 19. My oldest daughter just turned 21. And I have a group of mom friends who have kids all that age also. And, after I read the story, I was so horrified on so many levels. But one of the places I was most shocked was exactly why you're starting your foundation. I had no idea. Yeah, I understood HIPAA maybe 5%. I understood that once she enrolled in college, I couldn't speak to the college admissions people or the college people about health care for my child. But I did not understand that if your child is incapacitated and they're over the age of 18, you don't have the right as a parent to discuss their health care. That kind of defers to the hospital and the professionals that are in charge of her care. And I asked every single mom friend of mine if they knew this and if they had forms in place, and not one single mom friend of mine had those forms or knew this at all.
Right.
That was almost as shocking as the story of what happened to Baylie. That, I mean, we are very in the know parents, my group, and no one knew this.
Yeah.
That you have to get this message out. I don't know how I can help you with your foundation, but you have to. I agree with you. This should be something that's offered and then can be declined to any kid graduating high school, even.
Right. Yeah.
It was just really alarming.
Well, there's a misconception that next of kin is enough, and it just isn't. So people will argue and say, that's not true. They will tell next of kin. You're right. They'll tell you. And they told us when we arrived in person, they were very transparent. They told us what was happening and what was wrong. Could we decide on what surgery? No. Could we decide on what hospital? No. Could we choose a different healthcare provider? Could we get our medical records and get a second opinion? No. Could we advocate for her to have drug testing done? No, because that was a HIPAA violation. Maybe she didn't want her parents to know that she had drugs and alcohol in her system. So there are areas that people don't know about. These are the gray zones. These are the zones that you say, it's not black and white. You're not talking about a child who arrives and they're incapacitated and there's such severe brain damage that it's life and death. And they come to you and they say, your child is brain dead. We need to pull the plug. And you say, okay, yes, you're right. In that black and white scenario, they will allow next of kin because there's already nothing to discuss. But we were in the gray zone. And when there's things to be discussed, you are not that person anymore. And the ethics committee took control of that. And so we were very frustrated. It was like salt to the wound. Not only was my daughter fighting for her life, but I had lost control as her mother. And I was sick over it. I just couldn't believe that we couldn't advocate for these things. And as a result, the two men who drugged her and possibly were looking to sex traffic her are free. And they are still free. And they have never been brought up on charges. There was never even a court case about it because we didn't have it in her bloodstream.
That's insane. I mean, to me, that's insane. That is just crazy that law enforcement weren't informed and put into action. Can law enforcement not require a blood test?
Yes, and they did. But again, they looked at us and said, well, the hospital should have drawn it. Didn't they draw it? And we went to the hospital and said, didn't you draw it? And they said, oh, not in Florida. The standard in Florida is that if a trauma patient comes in, we don't draw it because the insurance company will deny the claim.
What?
Stunned. Yes. Then we told the police and they said, oh, okay, well, yeah, we'll order it. Well, it's a little late. So all it takes is a little incompetence somewhere or something to happen that you never thought of, like insurance is going to deny the claim. And you're thrown down this rabbit hole you didn't expect.
Right.
So put the power in the hands of the parent so that the parent can say right away, immediately, day one, did you do this? Then do it.
Then do it. And if they deny the claim, I'll pay it. Whatever. Right. I mean, it would have completely been worth it, not only for Baylie, but for future victims of these two guys who knows who they've also done this to. Is so alarming and upsetting. And I'm really appreciate you explaining that gray area because I immediately started texting like this mom group from this daughter's high school and this mom group. I mean, I texted all my mom groups in every direction saying, look into this for your daughter. And one of the moms in the mom group is a nurse in Florida and texted me back and said, I'm not sure this is accurate because a parent has the right. And I, of course, not being a nurse, not living in Florida, not fully understanding this, only having read your book, said, I don't know, I'm just recounting what this woman experienced in the state of Florida, in Miami, and I believe her experience is real, and she is also a nurse. So I don't know. Your experience working as a nurse, you're telling me one thing, but this is a very real thing that happened. So when you explain that gray area, that's very helpful.
Right. And what I say to parents is, for $69, do you want to have the debate? Do you want to talk to the staff and say, oh, wait a minute, I thought I could have rights here, but not here. Right. Well, doesn't next of kin apply to this? Why not this? Do you want to have the conversation with their legal team? Or do you want to just spend the $69 and put it to rest? Because we didn't want to have that discussion.
No.
It's just not something you want to do. And, you know, the law is gray because we've had attorneys debate it. There was discussion in Florida over, wait a minute, what is next of kin right? What is the legal, what is the ethics committee? You know, and then the guardianship piece, it wasn't that the hospital took guardianship, but we didn't have it. No one had it. And if we wanted it, we needed to go to court to get it. And that in itself is a confusing thing to say. Like, what do you mean? So who's the guardian? If I'm not the guardian, the hospital's not. Who is the guardian? Well, no one. Well, what do you mean no one? So this is the problem. The law fails us. And this is why, at the moment, any parent out there needs to get the forms.
So how do they get these forms? Do you have them through your foundation?
You know what? The forms are actually free. They are free for every state. And you go on your state website, you can get them and fill them out. You have to get them notarized and take a picture of them so you have them with you at all times. You can send them. Like I could have sent it from the sailboat and they would have given me the information over the phone. There are 4 different forms depending on what you want. There's power of attorney, there's HIPAA waiver, there's healthcare proxy, and then there's living will. So, you know, again, it is a little bit complicated. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I need. I'm just going to go to my attorney. The problem is, you know, you go to your attorney, it's expensive. It can be like $400 for these forms. There are other avenues. There's trustandwill.com. There's Mama Bear. These are online platforms that you can go to and pay the $69 and get all the forms completed. Again, print them off, take them to be notarized. The problem with all of this is it is state by state. So let's say we'd have done this in New Hampshire, our forms would not have been any good in the state of Florida. And in fact, Florida is the most strict state. There has been question with our attorneys on the advisory board about whether or not, if you got a form from Florida, if you've completed all 4 forms in the state of Florida, would those be granted in every other state because they are the most strict?
Interesting.
So that's a question. But the thing is, you know, your kids are traveling, they're going to school out of state. I mean, it's just so inconvenient. We need a universal healthcare proxy form that is just covered across the board. And this just needs to be changed. And it needs to be clarified. It's too confusing for people.
Life insurance is like a parachute. If you don't have it the first time you need it, there's no second chance. Jokes aside, life insurance is something you want to get right and right away because it's never cheaper today than it is tomorrow. If you're new to life insurance, you're not alone. Thankfully, I've found SelectQuote. For over 40 years, SelectQuote has helped more than 2 million Americans understand their options and get the coverage they need. Over $700 billion in coverage and counting. As a broker, their mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy at the best price. SelectQuote takes the guesswork out of finding the right insurance policy. You don't have to sort through dozens of confusing options on your own. Instead, one of their licensed agents will find the right policy at the right price for you, comparing plans from trusted, top-rated insurance companies to find a policy that fits your health, your lifestyle, and your budget. And they work for you for free. You'll be covered faster than you think. SelectQuote works with providers who offer same-day coverage up to $2 million worth with no medical exam required. And you're not out of luck if you have pre-existing health conditions, because SelectQuote partners with companies that offer policies for people with conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. SelectQuote makes life insurance simple. Even if this is your first time thinking about it, head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. What I like about SelectQuote is they take the legwork out of finding the right policy for you. There are so many different loopholes and fine prints, and I don't know what any of that means, but SelectQuote will drill it down to what is perfect for your life and your needs and makes it super easy and simple. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at selectquote.com/wife. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at selectquote.com/wife today to get started. That's selectquote.com/wife. I actually wasn't going to bring up Mama Bear unless you did, but I have one friend who has her oldest daughter just went to NYU this year. And when I told her the story, I told her the story of the whole book, but this meaty part of it that applied to our personal lives in this moment. She found Mama Bear. She shared that website with everybody. And Mama Bear does give you the capability of filling out your form for your home state and any other state.
Yeah.
In your same kind of profile or whatever. So I did it for my kids for our home state of California and the states in which they're in college. And I feel like, and this may be really naive, but I feel like if we were snow skiing in Colorado and something happened and I have these two other states where they spend all their time, it would have some kind of precedence.
Right. It's better than nothing, right? Something's better than nothing.
Yes. I think something is better than nothing.
And I mean, we tried to partner with Mama Bear. And they weren't applicable or amenable to that, but we certainly recommend any of those platforms. We are going to offer all of the state forms for free on our website. So there'll be a link for every state if you want to go that path. But the convenience factor is certainly there with Mama Bear, and Trust and Will does the same thing, same price. It's their young adult plan. So there's certainly platforms out there to get it, but oh my goodness, please get it, because you just don't know. And the other thing too is how many doctors we've asked about this and they say, gee, I don't know. They don't talk about that in med school. I'm not really sure what that rule is. If that situation happened, we would lean on the ethics committee or the legal department of the hospital. So they don't even know. So on our current board of advisors, Dr. Serena Shaw is the daughter of two physicians. She was actually in Bailey's class, one of her best friends. She's now a doctor, but her parents were both physicians and they didn't know. And Serena tells me that both her and her sister did not have any forms all through college because her parents didn't know. I mean, and here they are in the profession, but it's just not something we talk about.
So odd. I don't know why. I mean, what's the motivation to not talk about? Is it just not? I mean, obviously there's very little financial gain for people to talk about it, but also why not? Why not make it like you've proposed, something standard when they graduate from high school or enrolled in college or wherever, or when they turn 18 at their pediatrician's office or.
Right. And some pediatricians do suggest the forms, but I think we're just so used to doing it for the elderly and so used to making it a part of that process. We don't think about an 18-year-old being an adult who also applies under the exact same rule. Right.
No, that's very true. All the moms that had heard of this had said to me, I've only heard about it with elderly, with like my parents. Makes sense to do this for my parents, but not for my child. So anyway, I thought that was such an important and global's a big word, but global message for parents to just kind of be in the know. And you don't know what you don't know. So I appreciate you exposing that. I know through this, horrible experience in your own life, but one of the good things that comes out of this book is that educational piece. That's incredible.
Yeah. And it very much depends on circumstance. It really does. And what's happening with that patient. And the other thing that I've learned is that the definition of death is different in every state.
What?
Now, you wouldn't know that unless you were in her shoes. But depending on where she was, the definition of whether she was brain dead, whether she wasn't, what was her neurological status, it's literally different from New Jersey to New York. And so if you don't have those forms in place, you're dealing with a whole mess of legal issues and trying to decide what the right thing to do is.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Well, as I was reading the book, I kept saying, like, from the beginning, from your storytelling of having 3 children very young and being this kind of a force of nature in your own little way of working so hard to do great things for your family, and that marriage falling apart, and then all of these things happening, I thought to myself, what a strong human being. You are such a strong person from the beginning all the way through. Even when you had Scott as a partner, who was, in my impression from the book, is a very strong partner for you. What do you think in you made you that person? Was there something in your parental guidance? Was there faith? Was it what makes you that strong person? Because a lot of people from the first marriage that you expressed here would not have been able to step through the other phases of life that you have. What do you think makes you that person?
That's a very good question. No one's ever brought it up that way. I always looked at it as, God gave me these difficult journeys to prepare me for the ultimate challenge, the ultimate heartache. But in hindsight, perhaps it was the strength of my family. I have an incredibly supportive, extended family. And if I didn't have that village, I don't think I would have made it through. They held me up. They really did. They lifted me up. They were there for me every day. I had someone to talk to, my mom, my sister, and my friends. And you do what you have to do, and you rise above it because you have to, because your children are there and they're looking at you and they depend on you. I'm also fortunate because I just don't have an addictive personality, or I think I would have probably become a drinker, but it's just not in me. But I persevered, and the whole crazy thing of it, as you read, was I just felt like I had made a deal with the devil, because I finally had this wonderful life. I'd met this great man. We were living in a fabulous community, and we were living in a nice home. I didn't have to work anymore. We were planning a second family, this IVF pregnancy, and then everything collapsed. The whole world just fell apart, and I just thought, I prayed for this, and this is the price I pay.
What a hard thing to think. Is that, I don't know how you could not think that way. And at the same time, looking at your whole journey, I see your journey as a metamorphosis. That you really you didn't seem to change. Obviously, I didn't know you when you were young and had small children, or in your second marriage. But as I just listened to how you were honest about your own maybe shortcomings in those first 2 marriages, and your own kind of like, I was blind to this because I thought I was doing that. Like, you had talked a lot about how much you worked and to try and give your kids a better life and something more secure, and how, particularly in your second marriage, maybe that was hard for your kids when you had this great intention, but the impact was maybe a little different than what you thought it was. Exactly. That's so brave to say out loud, I think.
You know what? This is why so Baylie wanted me to share my story before this ever happened. And Baylie wrote the first chapter of that book.
Yes, I know.
And so it was just so ironic, the whole thing. But what I wanted to share in that message, along with the so many other messages with what happened with Baylie, was that there are many of us. There are so many women out there living the life I lived, in the marriages I was in, and so many women who just don't say anything, or they carry on with their day-to-day life and they put on a beautiful mask and everything is great. And we live in this fabulous home and nothing's wrong. And meanwhile, behind closed doors, there's a lot going on. And I wanted to be completely honest about that and to share with people, to hopefully help other women who are in domestic violence situations to say, hey, you know what? It happens to so many of us of all walks of life, and we all make it look pretty. And, it isn't great. And we do what we have to do to survive. But, we all have shortcomings and we don't see the forest for the trees. And it wasn't until my children would say to me, Mom, you gave us so much and I'm so grateful, but really all we wanted was you. I would have rather had you than the swimming pool and the nice school and the fancy cars and the camps. I just wanted you. But you don't know that until it's over and they tell you that.
It's true. And sometimes they don't know it in the moment.
Right.
Sometimes they know this is my life and I may be feeling something, but they're children. They don't know sometimes what they're feeling until it's over.
Right.
I don't know. I thought the telling of that, of how you got to be the person you were when this terrible tragedy with Baylie happened, was so brave and raw and vulnerable and helpful. Is that I think we change by hearing stories we can relate to and seeing a person make a positive choice to change their path can give another person a path. It may not be the same path, but at least an opening of the mind to allow a path to come in and say, oh, you know what? I saw this happen. I read this in a book, and if she did that, then I can maybe possibly do that too. It's so healing for the world when you share these vulnerable moments. I just thought it was amazing and brave. And what was really great also is that you found Scott, who it seems to me to be like the most amazing fit for you. Such a gift for you. Such a great partner that you had these two partners before. For lack of a better term, you kissed two frogs and you finally got the third was really a prince. And that you walked into that door. I think a lot of people, not just women, but a lot of people just continue to kiss frogs because they're afraid on some level to have that prince show up. And now you have to value yourself appropriately. Now you have to show up in a different way. Now you have a different kind of accountability to have that real deal thing you've been hoping for. Some people don't understand that. Sometimes that gives you a little bit of an internal struggle. Did you have any of that little internal struggle when Scott showed up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went into a depression the very first year we were married. I was struggling for sure. I felt like I had lost my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I had to recreate myself.
What was that like?
Yeah, that was a challenge. All right, it was really a challenge. And even patterns. We fall into these patterns of behavior, particularly in situations of domestic violence, whether it's physical, emotional, verbal, like any of it. And if you're playing these mental head games with, a narcissist or something, and you're used to being gaslit, or you're used to being triggered, or you're expecting to walk on eggshells, and you anticipate things, because that's what trauma does to us. Trauma creates this behavior where you're trying to predict the future all the time to avoid it. And that was really tricky because, he would look at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall, and it's not. So can you just explode so I don't have to keep waiting for it? Right?
Yes, I completely understand. I have a similar, when I first got married to my husband, I kept going, well, where's the shoe? Like I'm bracing for impact, but impact never comes. And then you're not sure what the next step is. Like you've only dealt with this cycle of impact and then dealing with impact. And when there's no impact, you're all of a sudden like, well, then what do I do now? You mean we resolve something?
I know. That's exactly it.
You mean you want me to be happy? What's that about? I don't understand. Now what do? I need to go break some vases or something and make sure we're still fighting. I don't know. I understand exactly what you mean. It is a little bit like unmooring for a minute to move from unhealthy to healthy when you've been in this kind of unhealthy back and forth relationship.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I had been a runaway train and in a tornado and life of chaos, and it all stopped on a dime. And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? I don't know. I only know chaos.
Right. So I have a friend who's a mom from the neighborhood who very tragically lost her son. Gosh, I guess it's been 4 years ago now. Is that right? About 4 years ago. And I would like to say she's getting better, but I don't know if that's true. I think she's having a really hard time moving. I think she feels like moving away from this grief is leaving her son.
Yes.
That they are one and the same.
Right.
Did you feel that way, or do you feel that way?
Absolutely. The word heal was a very difficult word for me. People would say, time heals everything. And I would say, no, it doesn't. And I'll never heal from this. It's like an amputation. And now I have to learn to live this way. So, my psychologist at the time, he was a grief counselor and a psychologist. He had worked with families of high school shooting victims. And he told me that it takes 2 years for the brain to rewire for a grieving mother, and that it needs to build new pathways to learn how to live, because you have to sever the old pathways. And it's like a neurogenesis, or what's it called, neuroplasticity happening in your brain. And I mean, right down to it, burning 300 calories a day for your brain to rewire for 2 years. Our culture doesn't embrace this. We have no idea this is happening to people. And we just say, get over it, get on with it. Meanwhile, they're going through all this stuff. So once that happened for me, I think I started to look for, I had the benefit of the spirituality side. So when I was able to see beyond the grief and look for her spirit and recognize that Baylie was still here, she was just in a different form. And perhaps this was always the plan. Some people may find that comforting and some people may not. For me, it was comforting. I could embrace that theory. I could accept that. I could say, okay, if that was always the way, if this was how her soul contract was supposed to be, and she's supposed to have a bigger purpose and teach people more in this world, and I need to carry on that legacy, I get it. I can do that. And I can step up to the plate for that. But I think everybody's grief journey is very different. And I would imagine it would be very difficult to move past the grief. Well, you don't move past it. You just learn how to carry it differently. But to be able to move forward when you don't have that belief, whether it's faith, whether it's religion, whether it's spirituality, whatever it is that you have, the grief is the love. The grief is the, I honor you. Imagine saying to your child while they're alive, if something happens to you and you die, I'll be fine in a couple of years. Right?
No.
Right? You could never say that, because the truth is, you would say to your child, I will never get over this. I will never get over you. If something happens to you, I will miss you the rest of my living days. And that's the truth. And so that poor mother is trapped in this belief and this feeling of, well, what am I supposed to do now? Because I promised you I'd love you forever. And so here I am, and I can't move forward because if I smile, that looks like I'm being disrespectful to you. And I'm not trying to laugh because I owe you this. It's a very complicated thing. And there is just no rule book and no guide for the grieving mother.
Yeah, I think so. I think you described what I think she's experiencing, is that any joy is a denial of his loss.
Yeah.
And in the same way, I don't think her son would want her to live in this deep depression for the rest of her life, If there's, he died of unknown causes in his sleep, and he was a senior in high school. It's not like there's for you know why Baylie passed, but she doesn't have any answers. And I think it's just, and she has a younger son. And so I want for her younger son to have his mom,
I know.
And it's just complicated and really hard and heartbreaking. Throughout your whole book, you weave through all these kind of messages, for lack of a better word, from Baylie, that some of them were put in place before this tragedy happened. And as I'm reading all these pieces, I feel like anybody doesn't believe in a higher power should read her book, because they were like, I had like gasp moments in your book, like, oh my gosh, when you put 2 and 2 together. And I don't want to spoil a whole lot of it, because I want people to read the book. But I know 2 come to mind right away where I literally gasped out loud and went, this is I just got chills. Undeniably from a higher power.
I know.
I mean, how you must have felt when those messages showed up. How did you feel?
Well, and that is why, despite the grief, it was in my face. It was right there in front of me. I mean, Baylie couldn't have been shouting louder at me, saying, Mom, look at this. Can't you see it? This is how it's always been. And even her writing the chapter of the book before she died, I was like, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't make this stuff up. I'm telling you. And it happened over and over and over. I kept going, your book is 400 some pages long. And once we got through her journey, I was like, there's so much book left. I can't wait to see what else she has to talk about, because you just kept discovering things and sharing that, and then discovering things, not just about Baylie, but about yourself, and about your relationship with Scott, and about your 2 new children, and about your 2 sons, and about your mom, and about your sister. And you just kept discovering and laying it all out there. It was just so beautiful.
Thank you.
The book is beautiful from start to finish in the way that you shared your life. It's very, very beautiful.
Appreciate that. Well, what I wanted the reader to take away from it was their own thoughts. I wanted them to pause and think about their own life and say, gosh, you know what? Maybe there is more than what we can see. Maybe it's a lot more than just what's on the surface. And for me, that was just so impactful that all these things kept happening. And to this very day, I mean, it's like there's a part 2 happening in me, because through the foundation, I've partnered with the Gabby Petito Foundation. And, there's a lot of us moms who are working together to try to make change. And again, Baylie is leading me. She is guiding me on this path. And I was in the basement the other day looking through some of the bins of the things that we had stored of her stuff, because Scott had asked me to get something. We're reopening the case and looking at the investigation. And I came across her journal. And I won't reveal everything I found in her journal, but it connected me directly to Gabby Petito's mom and what she's doing. And I was like, how is this happening? You're sending me another message that this happened and I need to pursue it. And it's just like,
that's crazy.
Continues to speak to me and send me in the right direction to get the job done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The way that you talked about your kind of, as you just said, her life contract, but the contracts each person in your family had with each other. Like from the beginning, when you started talking about how this was kind of her life contract, I started thinking about your 2 sons. And I thought, they have such a life contract.
Right.
That their contract may not even have been with you, but it had to come through you to have each other, to have this life they have together, which is so powerful to think about.
Right.
So it made me think about my 2 children and what their life contract is together. It was just a jumping off place. Your whole book not only was about your life, but for me personally, it allowed me to reflect on my own life contracts, my own experiences with finding undeniable messages from God or from my grandparents or from someone I've lost.
Yeah.
And it was just really enlightening and eye-opening and tragic and difficult. And I mean, sometimes I'd have to put it down and go, I just need a break. Yeah. This family has too much going on and I can't hold it.
I know.
I got to take a break. So it took me longer to read this book than it takes me to read most books, because some of it, particularly around Baylie's tragedy, was just so upsetting. I was upset on your behalf for some of the things that you were going through with the medical profession and for Baylie. And I had to take breaks from it. So,
yeah, and I realize that it is heavy at times, but I really wanted to share that emotion with people, particularly for the grieving mother community. So we are in a book club now with Helping Parents Heal, which I would highly recommend for your friend. They've been unbelievably supportive through the grieving process. But those grieving parents, for me, I needed them like a lifeline. I can't even convey to anybody how desperate a grieving mother is for another grieving mother, because nobody understands what you're going through like they do. And I wanted to share with them those emotions that I couldn't find when I was experiencing it. Everybody says, I'm sorry for your loss. And I was like, wait a minute, like, time out, my loss? What about her loss? Because as a mother, you spend your entire life living through your child. You feel every joy, every accomplishment, every failure, every heartache, everything they feel, you feel it. I mean, it's almost like you're a mirror of them. And so when she was dying, I was dying.
Yeah.
And her dreams were shattered. Mine were shattered. She didn't graduate college. I felt like I wasn't graduating. I mean, it was just like I was living for her. And I couldn't convey that enough through the book, that it's a very strange thing, because right away people say she's in a better place, but your human brain cannot comprehend that when you're faced with it.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know how I would comprehend it. And you were pregnant. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was pretty emotional when pregnant. I can't imagine having this happen to my daughter while I was carrying a daughter. I just can't. I don't even know how that is. How did it? I mean, it's dumbfounding that you made it through. Okay, it's a testament to the strength of the human body. Just the physical biology wants to reproduce.
Yeah.
To the point where all of this extreme stress, you still carried that baby.
Right.
She was early, wasn't she?
She was early, yeah. She was born at 35 weeks. But what was even ironic in that was, just prior to all of this happening, I had been doing some work in my parenting courses. I had studied through Gabor Maté, and he had done a video on in utero and the stress on the fetus and what happens, how that baby responds and their brain develops based on the mother's cortisol levels and adrenaline. And here I am now experiencing this, and I'm like, oh my God, did you show me that video on purpose? Like, what? Why did I watch it? So here it was like this whole thing that I was just living, as though everything had prepared me for this moment.
Wow.
And I knew Savannah was just marinating in all of that stress, and there was nothing I could do about it.
So how old is Savannah now?
She just turned 6.
Oh my gosh. And how old is your younger daughter? I've forgotten her name.
Seraphina.
She's 4?
She's 4, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so sweet. So how different are your two parenting experiences?
Incredibly different from both ends of the spectrum. Here I am in my 40s, the oldest mom probably at the school, and I've got these 2 little girls. But there is wisdom in child raising in your 40s, because, my emotions are much more regulated. I can handle a lot more than I did in my 20s. I was very reactive. And now, you know what? Nothing really matters. It's not a big deal. So,
right.
They have the benefit of that. What they're missing out on is this high energy mom who wants to run around and go skiing and all these fun things with them. And I mean, I do it, but I know that I'm not giving them that high energy that I certainly would have in my 20s.
Well, but they get all of you. Like
That's the trade-off.
Like you were saying, the older bunch of kids, your first batch, for lack of a bebetter word, what you were saying earlier is they just wanted all of me. The swimming pool and everything didn't matter, and you kind of got. I don't want to say a do-over because you have wonderful children. It seems to me all three of your older children turned out wonderful. So inarguably, you did a great job. No matter your personal notes for that time period, you have three great kids. But I would imagine it would be such a gift to have like a second experience, really.
Oh my gosh, it is. It is. I mean, how many parents raise their kids and say, "Oh, if I could do it over, I would do it so differently." Well,
Yes.
Here I am, and I get that chance. So it is a gift. Definitely.
It is a big gift. Are you going to write another book, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, all kinds of things have happened and changed. And, these experiences with Serafina are really mind-blowing too, that now that she can speak to me and the dreams that she has and the communication coming that way is really just kind of blowing me away. So I don't know yet. I'm going to be doing a few different talk shows and things like that based on Serafina and where she is right now. But that's where we are.
Do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, we can. Again, it's like a little bit more of the book. But so Serafina, when she was 2, pointed at a picture of Baylie and she said, "Mommy, that's me when I was grown up." And I said, "That's Baylie." And she said, "I'm Baylie. That was me when I used to be a grown up. Before I was in your tummy, I was a grown up. I used to drive the car." Yeah. And then the 2 very profound things she said to me. One was, Savannah wanted to get her ears pierced, and I hope we have a little bit of time, but we were reading stories at nighttime, at bedtime, and Savannah said, "How do they do it? What would it be like?" And so I was describing to her, they use this noisy gun, for lack of a better word, and Serafina said, "You can do it with a needle too." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "My brother's at the far away house. Remember, Mommy? They used an ice cube and put a needle in. You don't have to do it with the gun." Well, I had to call my mother, and my mom reminded me that when Baylie was 12, she had her ears pierced the first time, but she wanted a second piercing, and I wouldn't let her. And when I was at work on a night shift one night, the boys put the ice on her ear and put a needle through. I know. So, I mean, that's just something you can't make up. And she would never have heard that in 2025 in this world. And the other thing she said to me was, when my horse died, which is Bailey's horse, she said, when my horse died, they were running him with a leash, and he didn't like leashes, Mama, and they ran him in the rain, and that's why he fell. So the story of her horse is that the trainer was lunging him. It had just rained, the sand was wet, and he slipped and fell and broke his leg. We had to euthanize him, but we have never shared who was running the horse, that he was being lunged. She just knows that he broke his leg. It could have been Baylie riding him. It could have been anybody, but the details in that message really blew me away.
That's crazy.
So there's been a few crazy things. And again, I'm just on this journey, and I just, all I ask is that the reader be open-minded and consider that maybe there's more to this life. I've since taken that avenue. I've joined some groups where there's, several documented cases of reincarnated children. So
really?
I'm actually a part of that study now. Yeah,
That's fascinating.
3,000. The University of Virginia studies over 3,000 cases of experiences from young children recalling a life they shouldn't be able to remember.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
I would love to read that study of 3,000 people.
I know.
That's crazy. That's one of the wows. That there's plenty of wows. That's one of the wows in the books. When you started telling it, to be honest, I was like, okay, really? And then the more I read it, I went, okay, really? No, that's really. No, I believe her entirely. But yeah, in the beginning, I was like, I don't know. But boy, it took me 2 seconds to be like, oh, no, this is really happening.
Well, it's those coincidences, the synchronicity. Like, it's just like, how is that even possible? I mean, even if I wanted to create a story, I wouldn't have thought of that.
No.
So.
Definitely. So crazy. Oh, my goodness. Well, anything else you would like to say about the book? I have some questions. Let me check my questions really quick. Make sure I hit all of them.
I'm so grateful that people have embraced the book and that it is helping others. The book does support the foundation. So we really want to encourage sales of the book so that we can raise the money to do the things that, I promised Baylie I would do and make the changes through legislation. And also we're doing a campaign. We're hoping to make it national, like a MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or a DARE campaign, which would be the hidden dangers of college, and really educating kids on a national level in high school about the things they need to watch out for. And honestly, the parents don't even know what those things are because there's just so much in today's world.
I love that. I love that you're taking on that charge. And I agree with you. My daughters went to 2 different colleges. One college had a day and a half long parent orientation. They did not talk about this healthcare form stuff, which could have easily been folded into that orientation. But they did talk about the dangers of college life and, things to watch out for and how does someone roofies your drink and here's how you get a safe ride. They told parents that, and then also told the students that separately. The other daughter's college had nothing of the sort. Nothing at all. Not one. Orientation was basically like, if your kid needs to drop a class, they have to do it by now. But no, like, we can't talk to you about healthcare, none of that.
Yeah.
So the standards were just so vastly different. I think that what you're doing is very noble and needed.
Thank you.
How can someone find your foundation if they want more information?
We are the baileyswishfoundation.org. We're on the web. We're listed in the book. You can buy the book off of our website directly or at baylie.com. And the proceeds of that go directly to the foundation. And we're also on Amazon. But we've got a lot of news media, a lot of presence in social media, and hoping to make a change.
I am hoping for it for you also. Well, we'll put links for all of this in our description for this website, for this episode. And thank you for sharing this story with the world. And thank you for sharing this conversation with me. I've been so looking forward to talking to you after I read this book. It's such an amazing book. Anybody watching or listening, even if you don't have children, the story, again, is such a broader story than just this very tragic thing that happened for Baylie. It is a beautiful journey to be experienced and read. I think it's anybody could read this book and get something very profound from it.
Thank you.
And so I wish you all the best. And don't be a stranger, as we say. Come back and see me, talk to me some other time, and keep me posted. I would love to hear how the foundation's going. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, LeeAnn. I really appreciate you having me on. It was very nice to meet you.
You as well. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.